A face-saving deal between Unilever and Tesco keeps Marmite on the shelves. But is Brexit pushing consumer prices up? Good evening. The very thought of losing Marmite, Fairy Liquid and Pot Noodles sent Britain into a minor panic last night. Tesco has now done a deal with the supplier Unilever to keep all the products on sale. But we still don't really know who's absorbing the cost. The makers, the retailers, or ultimately the consumer. In any case, is this just a sign of what's to come? After all, the boss of Unilever warned on this programme just before the referendum that his prices would go up if Britain voted Brexit. It did. They have.
Also on tonight's programme, Nicola Sturgeon offers the prospect, if not a promise, of another independence referendum before the UK leaves the European Union. As the Home Office reveals hate crimes have soared by 41% since the Brexit vote, we speak to one woman whose hijab was ripped off in a suspected racially motivated assault. We take to the pristine waters of a new Arctic Ocean created by rapidly melting sea ice. But is it already being exploited by industrial fishing? And the times they are a-changing. Bob Dylan is lauded as a poet to rank alongside Homer or Sappho as he's handed the Nobel Prize in Literature.
And she graced the cover of Playboy 14 times. Now, the actress and model Pamela Anderson is campaigning to stop internet porn from destroying relationships. It's not about censorship, she tells us, but let's make it sensual, not sexual. So, Unilever has announced tonight that it's reached agreement to end its dispute with Tesco over the pricing of its products. The row blew up after Tesco said it would not accept 10% increases demanded by its suppliers. Another supermarket group told this programme it's been surprised by how aggressive Unilever has been in demanding higher prices. The rises followed a warning from Unilever's chief executive before the EU referendum on this programme that food prices would rise if Britain pulled out. Our business editor, Siobhan Kennedy, has this.
Marmite. Unilever loves it. Tesco hates it. The price, that is, not the sticky stuff itself. Now the spat between the two is over. But the row about Brexit and who pays for rising prices on our high street has only just begun. 24 hours ago, Tesco ceremoniously cut some of Britain's biggest brands, Marmite, Pot Noodle, PG Tips, from its website, rebelling against Unilever demands for a 10% price hike, which Unilever blamed on the dramatic collapse in sterling. Tonight, though, Unilever said the situation has been fully resolved. It said the two companies had been working closely together to reach a deal, and added, rather unusually for a multinational corporation, for all those that missed us, thanks for all the love.
As battles go, it doesn't get any bigger than Tesco versus Unilever, Britain's biggest retailer versus Britain's biggest food supplier. And yes, these types of rows do happen all the time, but this one is different. And that's because this one has been caused by Brexit and the impact of the falling pound. And where these two lead, others will follow. And it's us as consumers who'll end up paying the extra price.
Tesco's already in the middle of one supermarket price war, with discounters Aldi and Lidl snapping at its heels. So it fought hard against Unilever demanding price increases on all of its products. But here's the new economic reality. The pound has fallen 18% against the dollar since the referendum. That's caused the fastest rise in import costs in more than 5 years, and the biggest monthly increase in prices since the beginning of 2014.
Over half of the suppliers to the UK market have had a 15% or more cost price increase, and that has to end up on the shelves of the supermarkets. So if they think that this is strange or this is odd, get used to it. There's a lot more of this coming their way.
Unilever said today that its price rises had already landed with its other UK customers, but sources have told me that some of the other supermarket groups aren't happy with the price increases either. One said Unilever was trying to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut, while another said that they were extremely surprised at how aggressive Unilever was being.
Unilever's boss was pretty straight talking on this programme too in June ahead of the referendum, when he warned that tariffs could mean higher prices in this country as well.
Import duties on dairy Anybody from outside the EU has import duties that could be up to 40%, 50%. So the price of dairy products will go up, the price of ice cream will go up, and ultimately the consumer will pay the price for that.
So tonight, Marmite Gate may be over, but the sticky mess over who bears the brunt of price rises post-Brexit isn't as easy to clean up.
And Siobhan joins me now live. So, do we know what's happened?
We don't know the ins and outs, the intricacies of how they've resolved it, but suffice it to say both sides say that they have resolved it. Tesco's statement tonight: "We always put our customers first," it says, "and we're pleased it's been resolved to our satisfaction." One source has told me that we won't see any price increases on Unilever goods inside Tesco. But that's not to say that Unilever has capitulated altogether. The reality is both sides have probably agreed to absorb some of the price increases themselves and not, for the moment, pass them on to customers. Let's remember, of course, how we got into this mess in the first place. It's all about the falling price of sterling. Ironically, sterling has closed up tiny bit tonight and yesterday, but it has fallen, as we said in our piece there, some 18% since June, and that will inevitably translate into increased import costs. We've seen it already this week, Krishnan, with petrol, and today now we've seen it with this massive spat over food. But as ever, it gets particularly fiery in the supermarket sector. Asda, interestingly, tonight has thrown its hat in, saying its response that it plans to cut the price of Marmite tomorrow, would you believe, from £2.35 to £2.
Thanks, Siobhan. Kathy.
Well, as the economics of Brexit sparked a standoff on the high street, its political and constitutional issues saw two new fronts being opened today. In a moment, we'll be hearing from our political editor in Glasgow on the SNP's battle readiness. But first, let's go to Fatima Manji, who is in the High Court in London for the launch of a legal challenge to try and force the government to hold a parliamentary vote on leaving the EU. Fatima, spell it out for us. What could this court challenge mean?
Well, Kathy, it's quite important to say this isn't about rerunning the referendum through the court process. This is about how and when that process of Brexit should begin. Although the court challenge has been brought about by people who backed the Remain side, and some of their backers were outside court protesting today, brandishing EU flags, and were promptly met by a counter-protest of people who want Article 50 to be triggered now and are telling lawyers to keep their hands off our democracy. A visual reminder, if ever there was one, of how divided the nation might become on this. Now, this court case centres around who has the right to trigger Article 50, that process where Britain starts to begin negotiating leaving the EU. Should it be the Prime Minister and ministers? That is what Theresa May believes, using a royal prerogative. Or should that sovereignty lie with Parliament? That's what those behind this case are arguing. Now, why is this important? Aside of being perhaps the most important constitutional court case of our time, because it could set limits on the government's executive power, in terms of Brexit, it's absolutely crucial, because if the government lose, the power for what Brexit looks like, how it should begin, when it begins, could be handed back to MPs here in Parliament.
And Fatima, there's been a development at the European end as well, hasn't there? Tell us about that.
That's right. The President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, who will be overseeing those negotiations between London and Brussels when they eventually begin, has actually made comments about Brexit today in his speech. He says that the idea of soft Brexit is useless to speculate about. Now, that's this suggestion that soft Brexit would be Britain staying in the single market, still keeping EU benefits, perhaps having to accept freedom of movement. Donald Tusk says, forget about all that. There's only two options, hard Brexit or no Brexit at all. Now, he accepts that the idea that that might happen at the moment is very unlikely, but there's a suggestion perhaps that Britain may change its mind. Now, his comments today and the beginning of that court case are crucial, because that question of what Brexit actually means is much more complicated.
Fatima, thanks very much. Well, Scotland voted for the UK to remain in the EU, and the country's First Minister says she isn't happy about the moves towards a hard Brexit. Today, she promised to publish a bill within days, paving the way for a second referendum on Scottish independence before the UK leaves the EU. But she stopped short of a promise to hold the vote. Well, over now to our political editor, Gary Gibbon in Glasgow. Gary.
Well, What Nicola Sturgeon was trying to do today here in Glasgow was a few different things. One of them was to show real menace towards Theresa May. She's about to come down 10 days' time, Nicola Sturgeon, and see her with an articulated lorry full of demands. She wants Brussels powers not brought back to London but devolved straight to Holyrood. She wants Scotland to remain a full member of the single market. She's going to come down with those, and she wants to wield a sort of claymore threat with the threat of another referendum over Theresa May's head. And in that, she's also, a second strand of this, trying to play to the sympathies of the people who are in the hall here, her supporters around Scotland, who feel that England is diverging still more politically from Scotland post-Brexit. But what she's also emphatically trying to do today is maintain wriggle room, make sure that all these threats don't box her in terms of the timings of a second referendum, because she's not sure if it was called right now, next year or even the year after, she would win it. This is how what one of her aides said was a delicate situation. This was how Nicola Sturgeon dealt with it on the first day of the SNP conference.
The Brexit vote cast a gloom over much of Scotland. 62% here voted to stay in the EU. In Glasgow at the SNP conference, Nicola Sturgeon attacked Theresa May for her xenophobic anti-immigrant tone. She said she'd produce plans to keep Scotland closer to Europe, still a full member of the single market. But she got her biggest cheer when she warned the Prime Minister she was ready to call a second independence referendum before Brexit happens.
But hear this. If you think for one single second that I am not serious about doing what it takes to protect Scotland's interests, then think again. I am determined that Scotland will have the ability to reconsider the question of independence, and to do so before the UK leaves the EU if that is necessary to protect our country's interests. So I can confirm today that the independence referendum bill will be published for consultation next week.
It was a line intended to thrill those who want a second independence referendum within 2 years. But the First Minister was careful not to box herself in on dates. Different delegates heard different things.
I think she will call a referendum if the terms of Brexit are unacceptable.
So that means within 2 years?
Yes.
The timing will come when she thinks it's right.
And you're happy to leave that judgment?
Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, that's why she's our leader.
Might even be as quick as next year, yes.
Well, I think so as well. That's what you came away thinking.
Yes, next year.
What if it's not? What if it's not for quite a few years, because she's waiting, Nicola Sturgeon's waiting until she can be sure of victory? Are you willing to be that patient?
Oh, I don't know. Really don't know.
I'm never going to be able to do this. Not under pressure.
Nicola Sturgeon didn't commit to that timing because Brexit hasn't led to a surge in support for independence, and because her vote split. The British Election Study estimates that 37% of the Brexit vote in Scotland was made up of people who'd backed Scottish independence. You supported independence in 2014, 2 years ago, but you voted for Brexit.
Yes. I know. Just doing what I thought was right at the time, and now I'm just like, I don't know.
Just felt right at the time.
Yeah, it just felt right at the time. But now I think it's because nobody knows, but we don't know if it's going to be good. We don't know if it's going to be bad until it happens.
And there's been movement the other way too.
Independence this time, definitely.
Brexit's changed your views?
Totally.
Do you think that goes for a lot of other people?
I would agree with that. Well, I know my mum, my mother, my brothers were all the same, voted to stay in because we're one island and they have all switched.
The polls suggest a referendum now would have pretty much the same result as the one that happened 2 years ago. But the headline numbers conceal what pollsters call churn, shifts below the surface. Older voters without qualifications who backed Brexit have moved away from independence. But some of the better off, horrified by Brexit, have moved towards it.
I think there's quite a lot of movement below the surface. I mean, one thing's for sure is that there are sections of the elites in Scotland who are now thinking about independence. They're not dismissing it in the way that they did back in 2014. Now, that's not to say that there's a massive shift in favour of independence. The polls don't show that, and I'm not convinced that that has happened.
But they could be important opinion formers.
They could be very important opinion formers. And at the very least, I think some of the opposition in 2014 has probably been neutralised as a consequence of the Brexit vote.
Who's driving the bus?
Nicola Sturgeon knows the second attempt at an independence vote must succeed. There might not be a third. Brexit has raised the pressure on Nicola Sturgeon to call that vote sooner than she'd planned. Today was an attempt to ride that wave without getting dragged in. Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News, at the SNP conference in Glasgow.
Now, new Home Office figures have revealed a 41% leap in alleged racially and religiously motivated hate crimes in the month after the Brexit vote. Police in England and Wales logged almost 5,500 such offences in July, compared to less than 4,000 in the same period a year before. Our reporter Asad Beg has been talking to a Muslim woman who had her hijab pulled off in a suspected hate attack last week.
Post-Brexit vote Britain. People may have got their chance to vote on Britain's membership of the EU, but there's been a dark side that seems to have been unleashed in the aftermath of the referendum. Figures released today by the Home Office confirm a spike of racially and religiously motivated hate crime reported to police. A 41% increase in July this year compared to the previous year. That's nearly 5,500 crimes. The figures for August decreased, but still remain higher than last year. Behind those figures are real people. This 21-year-old student recently had her headscarf or hijab ripped off on a busy North London high street. She didn't want to show her face on camera.
At first I was shocked, I was trying to realise what just happened. I just froze, and he was still standing in front of me looking at me. He wasn't ashamed or anything. I'm still very upset and angry at the people that were there. I wish at least one person tried helping. It would have made me feel so much better.
After this attack in broad daylight, she now feels uncomfortable.
I'm proud of my hijab. Nothing's going to stop me from wearing it. But, I'm definitely more terrified when I'm going out, and especially when I'm around men.
Community groups say that such incidents strike fear into the wider community.
As a Muslim woman who's travelled a lot of countries alone, I've never felt so much fear leaving my house in East London. Not just fear, I've internalised that when I leave the house, something can happen to me. And there are many women like myself. What happens is the crime doesn't just extend, and the trauma doesn't just extend to the victim, but it extends to the community. The community is traumatised by the possibility of something happening to them.
Last month, it was the Polish community in Harlow, Essex, feeling anguish after the killing of Arek Jozwik. Responding to today's figures, Home Secretary Amber Rudd said, "Hatred has no place in the Britain that works for everyone, and we are determined to stamp it out," adding that she was happy that more people are coming forward to report hate crimes.
Don't live with it on your own. Try to get support from people. And the more we speak about it, I think that's when things will start changing. If you see something like this happen, not just to a Muslim, anyone, just act on it. No matter where you're from, no matter what race, no matter what religion, it's not right.
In a speech at the Tory party conference, Theresa May promised to act on behalf of us all to provide security from crime. From today's figures, it seems she has a lot to do.
Asad Beg reporting there. Now, new military options against Syrian forces must be considered by the West, according to the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. This as the Syrian army continues military operations to retake neighbourhoods in Aleppo. Syrian opposition activists say that more than a dozen airstrikes were carried out last night, killing at least 11 people. Boris Johnson told the Foreign Affairs Select Committee that he's called a meeting of his counterparts in America, France and Germany on Sunday to discuss the situation. He said there had to be a new set of options, but gave no details.
Most people, I think, are now changing their minds about this, and they're thinking, we can't let this go on forever. We can't just see Aleppo pulverised in this way. We have to do something. And I thought the mood of the House of Commons the other day was very telling. I think it has changed from 2013. Whether that means we can get a coalition together for more kinetic action now, I cannot prophesy.
The Thai government has declared a year of national mourning following the death of King Bhumibol. The 88-year-old had been the world's longest reigning monarch, having been on the throne for more than 70 years. But the government has delayed an expected announcement of his son, the Crown Prince, as his successor. Our Asia correspondent Jonathan Miller reports from Bangkok.
At 6:58 p.m. local time, Thai TV stations interrupted all programs. The king has died, the palace spokesman said. He has passed away peacefully. So comes to an end a reign of 70 years. King Bhumibol Adulyadej. His name means the strength of the land, the incomparable power. For Thais, this wasn't hyperbole. A wave of grief spread through the grounds of the hospital where the king died. Beloved by his now bereft subjects for his self-sacrifice, wisdom, munificence. As close to a god king as a modern monarch can come. The only king most Thais have ever known. Why was he so important to you?
It meant everything for me, like more than my parents. He's
more than your parents.
Yeah.
You call him like a light.
Yes, the only brightest light for Thai people.
So he was like a guiding star.
Yes, something like that.
And without him?
As you can see, everything is like lost that way. Yeah.
Are you worried about the future?
Yeah, very much.
The body of King Bhumibol will now be taken to his royal palace to be ceremonially bathed. He will lie for 100 days in state to allow as many of his 70 million adoring subjects to come and pay their respects as one to come. But if you ask Thais the question, what happens next, they won't tell you all that. They'll say, we have a new king now, and he's not like his father. Many are worried about just what the future will hold. King Bhumibol is a hard act to follow. He took the throne as an 18-year-old engineering graduate, the Thai monarchy at a nadir. For decades, he travelled the length and breadth of his country, demonstrating his concern for his people. He wielded his power deftly and sparingly, intervening to calm hot-tempered protesters and generals. By his 60th anniversary on the throne, he had, in the eyes of the bulk of his people, virtually achieved the status of a living deity. But in his long twilight, the looming succession crisis cast a dark shadow over his realm. This, though, is the man who will be crowned King Rama X of the Royal House of Chakri. It will happen when the time's right, Thailand's military ruler said tonight. But 64-year-old Maha Vajiralongkorn, King Bhumibol's only son, is not loved here like his father. He is feared. He lacks stature and respect, and many consider him reckless. Tonight, though, Thailand's Game of Thrones is on hold, as a nation marks an epochal milestone and mourns.
Police have confirmed that a gorilla escaped at London Zoo, but say the incident has now concluded. There are reports that the animal was shot with a tranquilizer dart and recaptured. Visitors tweeted pictures of themselves locked inside the zoo buildings.
Now, most of the cod and haddock we eat comes from the seas around the Arctic, where rapidly receding sea ice means an entire new ocean is being uncovered. Environmentalists are concerned that despite a voluntary moratorium protecting pristine Arctic waters, irreparable damage could be done by fishing trawlers. But Arctic fishermen argue that as the fish move north with increasing sea temperatures, they should be allowed to follow them as long as they fish responsibly. Our science editor, Tom Clark, has been to the northern Barents Sea around Norway's Svalbard Islands to look at the future of fishing in the rapidly melting Arctic.
Stort sett opphold I indre strøk. Mildere. Spitsbergen. Sør-vest liten kuling utsatte steder. Regn og regnbyger.
There's plenty of fish in the North Barents Sea. The cold water of the Norwegian high Arctic is one of the world's most productive and well-managed fisheries. For Norway's economy, fish are second only to oil and gas. And we in the UK are their biggest customer. Up to 70% of the cod and haddock we eat comes from this ocean. A few miles off the Svalbard Islands, we joined a Norwegian Coast Guard vessel on fisheries patrol. You ever wondered how seriously the Norwegians take their fishing? The answer is very serious indeed. Here we go, being dropped on a winch into the Barents Sea. These teams have carried out 2,000 fisheries inspections this year. Our immersion suits are essential. You wouldn't last long without one in this polar sea, just a few degrees above freezing. So we're about to board the Norwegian shrimp trawler. We've got the trawl nets out behind it. And the Coast Guard are going on board to make sure it's doing everything in accordance with the rules of the fishery. They check the fishing gear is legal and that vulnerable stocks aren't being overfished. Here they're checking the shrimp trawl hasn't hauled up too many young Atlantic cod.
So this is only polar cod, it's no problem.
Right. So while most of the world's oceans have been overfished, cod, haddock and prawns from the Barents Sea are all certified as sustainable. Norway claims its rigorous policing helps keep it that way. But here's the thing, this ocean is changing. The fjords west of Svalbard used to freeze over completely in winter. Now they haven't for years. Trawlers have moved into areas once covered in polar ice. It's the same story across the Arctic. This is the average extent of sea ice in the summer. This year, it melted to its second lowest extent since satellite records began. 2 million square kilometres less ice, 2 million square kilometres more sea. Earlier this year, Greenpeace persuaded the fishing industry to stop catching cod and haddock in newly ice-free areas.
The Arctic Ocean is really valuable, really special. It's the only ocean on the planet that hasn't been fished because it has been protected by ice. The ice is now melting, that is sad, but it gives us a golden opportunity to protect it, to treat it in a way that we should treat other oceans and to do it right from the beginning.
But with highly valuable cod and haddock stocks moving north with warming waters, Norway's trawlermen are now challenging the moratorium they signed, trying to demonstrate fishing in new parts of this sea can be sustainable. The Norwegian fishing industry invited us aboard the Helmer Hansen, a research ship used by the Norwegian government to study fish stocks in the high Arctic. A key focus is cod and haddock like these, the most commercially valuable fish. The scientists are getting detailed information about the size, age and breeding potential of the fish.
Yeah, the length, 65, and the weight, 23,58.
While the cod and haddock around the UK are still recovering from decades of overfishing, the fish up here are doing much better. So take a look at this cod. It's about 60 centimetres long, about the average size of a fish you catch in a North Sea trawl, and compare that to this whopper, which is more like the typical size you get here in the Barents Sea. It's partly due to good management of fishing, but warming oceans are helping too.
So we have an impression that some of the fishes are actually benefiting quite well from the climate change.
Fine. What is that? Because their range is expanding?
Range is expanding, temperature is increasing, there is a higher production, things like that. This is an area where the Atlantic part of it is actually expanding, and that's beneficial to the fisheries.
The other thing they're seeing may sound counterintuitive, that the further north they go, the cold sea supports a wider array of life, like this gelatinous snailfish, sea spiders, and Arctic krill, essential food for seabirds and whales. So the real question is not whether the Arctic can support more fishing, it's about what damage the fishing might do. And on a commercial vessel like the shrimp trawler we boarded earlier with the Coast Guard, you get a sense of the impact it can have. And there's twin nets, it's a double trawl, pulling along the bottom for shrimp. And it uses this huge steel roller and a pair of otterboards to hold it down. There's nothing illegal at all about this equipment. You can see why conservationists are worried about the damage it does to the seafloor. Bottom trawling ploughs up the seabed. Some of it is pretty barren, like this. But in other areas, like this one just north of where we were fishing, there are banks of cold water sponges and possibly coral. Conservationists say they're too valuable to damage. The 55-metre Hermes has just returned to port in mainland Norway from the Barents Sea. There's no doubt in your mind that there is a change in climate and the cod is moving as a result.
Yeah, not only the cod, but what the cod is eating. So the temperatures are changing.
It's offloaded 300 tonnes of cod and haddock into this freezer plant. To skipper Åsmund Breivik concede catching it might be trashing the newly ice-free Arctic.
You accept that trawling with gear on the bottom is damaging to the seabed, but you're...
No, if you're trawling in like coral reefs or something like that, of course they're damaging, but we are not doing that. I don't know of any coral reef in the Svalbard area, me personally, but all of the other coral reefs in Norway are protected with guard zone, you know, you cannot fish there. And we also signed a treaty that we're not going to exploit areas that have not been fished on before.
Yeah.
So we are taking our precautions. We don't want to exploit or do anything harm to the nature.
The fishermen say they'll stick to the current moratorium on trawling in previously unfished Arctic waters. But they've told us they will go further once they can show they're avoiding known biodiversity hotspots. Conservationists say voluntary agreements won't be enough.
We must get it right from the beginning, and we know what we're doing. We know that we have destroyed so much of the rest of the world's oceans on the seabed with overfishing, with bad management. We must get it right in the Arctic, and that means, first and foremost, wait, patience, don't destroy.
As the ice retreats, those concerned with the Arctic's marine resources go on the offensive. Will these new oceans end up damaged and overexploited like the rest of the world's fisheries? Or can fishermen and environmentalists work together to ensure they don't?
Tom Clark afloat on the Barents Sea. Shameful and cruel. That's the US First Lady Michelle Obama's verdict on Donald Trump's alleged behaviour and comments towards women. In a speech in New Hampshire, she said she couldn't stop thinking about them. It has shaken me to the core, she added. The Republican presidential candidate is facing allegations of inappropriate sexual conduct from a series of women, all of which he denies. Our Washington correspondent Kylie Morris joins us now. Kylie, these are pretty strong words from the First Lady, aren't they?
Strong words indeed, and a very strong performance indeed from Michelle Obama in the role of surrogate for Hillary Clinton, which she's performing very effectively, certainly amongst independent and Democratic voters. She really didn't mince her words. She rejected any suggestion that these comments by Mr. Trump amount to locker room talk. She's talked about sexually predatory behaviour. She said this isn't about politics, it's about basic human behaviour, and urged everyone to do everything they could to make sure that Hillary Clinton was elected. As soon as she came off stage, though, Donald Trump took to the stage in Florida to address a rally there, and there he really tore into the media. He criticised the women who've accused him of these acts, rejecting it altogether, saying that there is a conspiracy between the media and Hillary Clinton's campaign. He said himself he never realised the campaign would be so vile, and told his supporters that it was their last chance to save America. But let's hear first from what Michelle Obama had to say earlier.
No woman deserves to be treated this way. None of us deserves this kind of abuse.
The First Lady reaching for the last word. The Clinton campaign's most powerful surrogate at a rally in New Hampshire launched an attack on the moral code of the man who would succeed her husband in the White House.
It's about right and wrong. And we simply cannot endure this or expose our children to this any longer, not for another minute, and let alone for 4 years.
The controversy over the Republican candidate's attitudes toward women have led some to call time on his campaign, from meltdown in August to total meltdown in October.
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet.
Certainly the Democrats are making the most of Trump's hot mic comments, bragging about how women let you do anything when you're famous, looping those quotes with other comments he's made over the years.
I did try and f her. She was married.
Must be a pretty picture you drop in Dennis.
Just don't respect her as a journalist.
Treat women with respect.
I can't say that either.
The Trump campaign moved to shut down fallout from the hot mic video with an apology.
I said it, I was wrong, and I apologize.
And then a denial on the debate stage on Sunday that he ever acted in the way he described.
Are you saying that what you said on that bus 11 years ago, that you did not actually kiss women without consent or grope women without consent?
I have great respect for women. Nobody has more respect for women than I do.
So for the record, you're saying you never did that?
I said things, but I have tremendous respect for women.
Have you ever done those things?
Women have respect for me. And I will tell you, no, I have not.
But in the last 24 hours, a number of women have made accusations that they were subject to his unwanted groping and kisses at beauty pageants, on planes, in business meetings, in interviews. Two of those women spoke to the New York Times for a story Trump calls a total fabrication.
It was a real shock when all of a sudden his hands were all over me. He started encroaching on my space. But it's when he started putting his hand up my skirt. And that was it. That was it. I was out of there.
The Trump campaign is pushing back, calling Hillary Clinton no friend to women by accusing her of enabling her husband's abuse.
And this woman who says, I've been fighting for women and fighting for women, she's been fighting against lots of women. And where's the product? We have millions of women in poverty, millions of women without health insurance. I mean, I think it's very important. It's your show. You can cover what you want, but let's not pretend that it reflects what American women are telling everybody they want to hear in this election.
At his rally a short time ago in Florida, Trump was back on the teleprompter, addressing the claims that have been made against him head on.
These vicious claims about me of inappropriate conduct with women are totally and absolutely false.
The Republican candidate blames his opponent and the media for orchestrating the claims. Voters have just 25 days to decide who they believe.
Now, it's an unlikely combination, an actress and model who was one of Playboy magazine's biggest stars, and an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. What could they possibly have come together to campaign against? Well, pornography, of course. In a moment, we'll be hearing from them, but first, a little explanation. And a warning, this report contains flashing lights from the start. She's not the first person you'd expect to lobby against porn. Actress, glamour model, Playboy playmate, Pamela Anderson has been a sex symbol for decades. But in a joint article with famous New York rabbi Shmuley Boteach, she's warning of the corrosive effects of pornography and wants an honest conversation on what it's doing to relationships. Pamela Anderson became a star on the cheesy American TV hit Baywatch. She's been a pin-up for generations. Off TV, she was a soft porn glamour girl, making the cover of Playboy more than any other model. She fell victim to a leak of a private sex video, which went viral on the internet. But nothing stopped her mixing with the rich and powerful, including the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. These days, she's known for being an animal rights activist, but it's her anti-porn campaign that's making waves in a multi-billion-pound industry. She asks how many relationships will suffer with unrealistic aspirations of sex caused by watching porn, and fears watching explicit material impedes a man's ability to be a good husband and father. Where is love in all this, she asks. But many, like porn actress Ella Hughes, argue porn is getting a disproportionate blame.
It's so easy to pin the blame on something, and people blame it on pornography because it's an easy target to poke holes in, because there has been ongoing issues with people's conceptions. I think that this world is quite a conservative one still, so people still kind of are a bit shocked at the whole subject towards like sexuality, but porn did not create sexuality and depravity. It's always been something that's there.
Ella markets herself, as many others do, online on places like Twitter. And critics worry this means children having access to explicit images. But is sexual imagery really leading, as Pamela Anderson and Rabbi Shmuley argue, to a generation becoming the crack babies of porn? Well, I spoke to Pamela Anderson and Rabbi Shmuley Boterer a little earlier, and I began by asking Pamela Anderson what she's really worried about.
Well, I'm concerned about porn addiction, and I think it's infecting relationships. I think it's, I'm worried that the world's going to forget how to make love. I'm calling for a sensual revolution. I think the sexual revolution just gave us a lot of really bad sex. And I think it gave us a lot of freedom, but it also kind of is at a point now where it seems to be a dark turn. There's a lot of access. You know, I have 2 teenage boys, and I just want us to take stock of ourselves and kind of think about, just have a little bit of a timeout, press reset, how much of this is really affecting our lives. And you know, we're not talking about a dictatorship, we're not talking about government getting involved, just about ourselves. And just remembering what sensuality is and what intimacy is, and you know, that's the best kind of sex. So,
but what's this dark turn? I mean, what is it that you think is happening to teenage boys and other people? You know, anyone who's consuming it.
Grown men too. You know, when you have a woman lying in bed in lingerie and you're in the locked in the bathroom looking at a computer, something's wrong. You know, so there's so much access, and I'm worried about that for young people too. That I know I should probably disqualify myself in this conversation because I'm a Playboy playmate. I had a tape stolen from my house and sold, you know, and all over the world that we had nothing to do with. But people need more and more to get aroused, I feel like, and I think it's leading towards violence against women, rape, child abuse. I really think it has something to do with that, and I think that we really have to start just thinking about what we're doing as people, how we're imprinting ourselves, what we're watching, what we're doing, what we're eating, what we're wearing. It all builds our character, and it's really important to just have the conversation.
Rabbi, what is it you want to do? Because the genie's out of the bottle now. I mean, you can't stop the porn industry, can you? I mean,
no, on the contrary, because we're not trying to impose anything from above. We're trying to get people to express what they really want. People want 2 things, passion and intimacy. They want relationships that are both hot and heavy, but also create closeness and a sense of removing aloneness. Now, anyone who's watching the presidential election of the United States can't help but be disgusted by the accusations of this candidate, this former president. But these people, it's not just political, they're marinating in a culture that degrades women, where women are portrayed as the means to the male libidinous end.
I mean, Pamela, you raised it. You know, you were a Playboy model, and you've been a glamour model for many years. What is the difference between what you've done and what it is that you're worried about?
Well, I think that's what we have to ask ourselves. Where does titillation and voyeurism and, you know, sexy is healthy, to be sexy is healthy, and we have to figure out where we draw the line, you know, within ourselves. I don't think Playboy was pornographic. You know, I really think it was, I had a great experience with Playboy, and the Playboy lifestyle was a lot of fun. It's bittersweet that it's ended. And I know it seems funny that I'm, you know, been on the last cover of Playboy, but that I'm also have these concerns.
Now, Rabbi Shmuley raised the tone, the sexual tone of what's going on in the US election at the moment. Now, you've written a very powerful piece on your blog, really, I guess, talking about Donald Trump and those revelations recently. I mean, you found it disgusting.
I did, and I have never been a fan because you know, I kind of knew that this was probably going to come because, and it's not okay. It's not okay to validate that in any way. So to have that person be the president of the United States is going to send a really poor message to children, to men everywhere that are looking for, you know, role models. And it's we can't be swept under the rug. So I really do hope. It is a complicated situation, the elections, and it seems kind of like a reality TV show. And you know, you don't even want your kids to watch TV right now because you don't want to see this on TV.
But it transcends partisanship because you have Trump, you have Bill Clinton, you have all of this that came. True.
But Pamela, you must have met Trump. I mean, you've been photographed with him at public things.
I think it was like a birthday party. I think I was hired to be at an appearance where he was.
Did your experience of him and the way he approached you tally with what we heard in that tape? I mean, did you find him leery or?
Well, I took a picture with him and his wife.
Sexually threatening in any way, or?
I was with his wife. Taking a picture, or girlfriend at the time, I'm not quite sure, but it was a long time ago. But I didn't even think of it. You know, again, you know, there's a lot of men that I run across, you know, you kind of have that feeling maybe a little bit when you're taking a picture with them that, you know, maybe some are more lecherous than others, but, you know, you get out of that situation pretty quick. You're just there for a picture.
Did you get that feeling with him?
No, not that I remember. But I just...
It's just that you said you felt this was coming, you know.
Well, I've heard stories. I've, like everybody else has, he's been calling, Muslims and he's been degrading so many different people, not just women. And, just saying strange things even about, just girls in general. I just, this isn't a big, it's not like a big crazy thing that just happened. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of issues the way he talks about people in general.
The defense that it's locker room banter, I mean, that's the issue. It's the defense as this is our culture. And there's a whole debate going on in the United States right now as to whether that's true. Whether
you think he's wrong in that, even though you're a supporter of his, aren't you?
I'm what?
You're a supporter of his, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
No, I thought you were. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that he's a strong supporter of Israel. I'm Jewish. But no, I've condemned his comments. They are deplorable. They're disgusting. They're vile. You can't speak that way about women, and you can't speak that way about minorities. The most powerful thing in our conversations, me and Pamela, is when she says to me that so many women want to be treated like sex symbols, like Pamela is an international sex symbol, but actually, in relationships, that means you get treated very poorly, very badly. And a lot of women are suffering through that. And if you have someone like Pamela Anderson saying that, if you have someone like Pamela Anderson saying, I'm in a relationship where men can ignore me physically, erotically, sexually, because men are kind of addicted to vast quantity, wow, that's a real problem. And we have to start having that conversation. Trump is the tip of the iceberg. His comments have to be condemned utterly. But the rest of us have to do a little bit of soul searching as well.
Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
After the break, it's lyrical, but is it literature? Bob Dylan, the real one, not the tribute act we accidentally showed in the headlines, has won a startling prize.
I think of myself more as a song and dance man,
Controversy in the arts world as he's awarded the 2016 Nobel Prize in Literature.
It's ill-conceived nostalgia from the rancid prostates of senile gibbering hippies, says Irvin Welsh. Or it's a great choice for the brilliant inheritor of the bardic tradition, says Salman Rushdie. The Nobel Prize for Literature has been given to the folk and rock musician Bob Dylan. Yes, a literature prize. Now, we all love Dylan, but there's been some protest at the award and what it says about literature, music and the Nobel Committee. Did they just want a good party? Here's our chief correspondent, Alex Thompson.
John is in a basement mixing up the medicine.
Our imitation being the sincerest form of flattery is the real thing, from Subterranean Homesick Blues in '65. Memorably, Dylan himself was once asked if he was a poet.
I think of myself more as a song and dance man,
And no doubt that's what the Nobel Academy wants, a gig, not an acceptance speech from the Minnesota Muse. Even so, today's announcement in Stockholm was greeted with surprised cheers and some guffaws.
Nobelpriset I litteratur år 2016 tilldelas Bob Dylan.
So that makes two. Obama the Nobel peacemaker, Dylan the Nobel poet, both raising quite a few eyebrows along the way, though Dylan's probably far less surprising. Not every day you get a lesson on where to start with Bob from the Nobel Academy.
I would recommend beginning with Blonde on Blonde from 1966. Why? Because it's so good.
Beyond doubt, Dylan's greatest 60s ballads gave voice to young America rebelling across the Vietnam era. Blowing in the Wind.
The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Like a Rolling Stone.
Like a rolling stone.
The lyrics for that, written in pencil on hotel stationery, selling at Sotheby's in 2014 for more than $2 million. In The Times They Are Changing, Dylan pointed the finger at the America of civil rights and anti-war protests, singing, "Your sons and daughters are beyond your command." Norman Mailer famously said, "If Dylan's a poet, I'm a basketball player."
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man.
But legions of Dylan fans around the world will disagree. True, the times have changed. and Dylan's most telling lyrics seem well past nowadays. But he's still out there at 75, touring relentlessly. And is still sung, quoted and paid homage to globally. From complete unknowns to Rolling Stones.
All I really want to do is say goodbye.
By and by. That's Channel 4 News. Good evening.
Good evening.